Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons. We're going to talk about the entirety of the tabletop role-playing game. We're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're going to talk about the tabletop role-playing game industry. First of all, Dungeons & Dragons is not part of the tabletop role-playing game industry, in my humble opinion. They are highly distinct from it. And the reason why is, here's why the Dungeons & Dragons is not part of the tabletop role-playing game industry, in my humble opinion. The reason why is the public knows it. The public knows, if you walk down Main Street and you have $1,000 in your hand and you say, "What is Dungeons & Dragons?" you won't get past the second shop on Main Street before that $1,000 is out of your hand. They'll give you an answer, right? It might not be fully accurate, but they'll have a sense of it. They'll go, "It's a board game." They will have an answer, right? If you go down any Main Street in America, you say, "What is the TTRPG industry?" And they're like, "Oh man, I forgot. My taxes were due on May 15th, right?" Or, "That's an app that I think helps you find constellation." They will have no idea. And I think you'll reach the end of Main Street, and that $1,000 will still be in your hand, right? If you're just offering $1,000, anybody who can tell you what the TTRPG industry is, I think any Main Street in America, you will get down that street asking everyone you meet, and you'll have that $1,000 in your hand when you're done, right? So here's the point of today's video. The tabletop role-playing game industry technically exists, but does not functionally exist. This is a really big deal today, right? There's a lot of vaporware, right? One of the biggest vaporwares being sold today is driverless cars, right? They're like, "Oh, there's driverless cars." Are there? Right? I don't think there are. I don't actually think there are driverless cars at all, right? I think it's fake, right? And the reality is there are, and if you're not paying attention, I could list half a dozen companies that have lost billions and are wrapping up all their research in driverless cars because technically it exists. You see them every now and then. Somebody takes a cab with no driver, whatever, in some limited, but the reality is, we're still waiting for our jetpacks. There's a lot of vaporware being sold. And I'll tell you right now, in my humble opinion, the tabletop role-playing game industry is vaporware. It's not real. It's a bunch of incredibly charismatic, confident, intelligent people who consequently, because they're charismatic, confident, and intelligent, have money, right? But and then stand up these projects, right? Excuse me. Stand up these products. Excuse me. Stand up these projects, and then that don't make money, actually often lose entire. Like the guy who did Blood and Doom just said, he literally leveraged his life savings to make a tabletop role playing game. The odds of that thing paying him back are slim to none. Right? I don't think that there's a need for a D&D, that there's a strong market, that's going to earn back your life savings. It's vanity projects, reality. And so technically, 100%, tabletop role-playing game industry exists. Functionally, it doesn't, right? And you're like, "Well, Scott, that's, is that true?" Let me explain it, right? It's very complicated, okay? So what is the thumbnail on this video? Well, those are the top 10 shows for Netflix in 2022, right? Grace Randolph called this out. And she said, take a look at this. Here's the top 2022 streamer shows. Excuse me. Here's the top 2022 streamer shows of top 10 streamer shows of 2022. And if you take a look, there are 5 streamers, right? Netflix, Amazon, and these are in order of their size. Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, and HBO Max. Okay? Actually, it's HBO Max and then Paramount Plus, right? The other 4 streamers could not put a single show into the top 10. So that means that Netflix outperformed the entire industry. So there really isn't a streaming industry. There's Netflix, And there are 4 other companies that have dumped billions into streaming and are finding it's actually not profitable. There was just reports that they think that, Disney has spent billions, right? And they're getting a lot of subscription money, but there's no proof that it's even profitable, right? And so the entire streaming industry is technically exists, but functionally, it's really an experiment that looks like it's about to fail, and we're gonna find a new way to watch material, because only Netflix is able to continue this churn and burn. Like, they borrow billions, they turn it into content, and nobody even knows if it's profitable, right? And we could go along, like, Amazon showed no profit for the first 18 years of their existence. So we could go 2 decades without knowing if the streaming industry is real or a weird experiment that is not making any profit, right? That's incredible. That is incredible. And I think that's exactly where we have arrived with the tabletop role-playing game industry. For one, in my humble opinion, Dungeons & Dragons is absolutely not part of the tabletop role-playing game industry. The tabletop role-playing game industry is a niche existence, an entity that is known to a niche group, which is the tabletop role-playing game enthusiasts, which is so small that the average American doesn't even know what it is, right? Wizards of the Coast made $875 million in 2019. Its closest competitor was Paizo. They made 25. They are literally 35 times larger than their greatest competitor. So Dungeons & Dragons is its own industry. It does not, it is offensive, in my humble opinion, to include it in the tabletop role-playing game industry, because the tabletop role-playing industry has performed so small, so shamefully, that it's an offense to the name of Dungeons & Dragons to even include it in the tabletop role-playing game industry umbrella, right? And then the tabletop role-playing game industry technically exists, but doesn't functionally exist. That is my posit. What is your posit? Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. I'd love to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful morning.